In the summer of 2022, 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson had just moved into her new apartment at Tamarack Village in Florida. The move represented a fresh start, a place where she could build a stable home for herself and her 4 children. As a bartender and bottle waitress in Broward County's vibrant hospitality scene, Kayla was known for her infectious energy and warm personality. Friends described her as everybody's hype man, someone who could light up any room with her smile. But on July 13th, that promising new chapter was violently cut short. What Kayla couldn't have known was that someone was tracking her boyfriend's every movement through GPS technology. Someone whose obsession had transformed into deadly rage. Someone who followed digital breadcrumbs straight to her doorstep. That someone was 28-year-old Sakiyna Thompson. The afternoon silence at Tamarack Village was shattered around 3 p.m. when emergency services received a distressing call about an unresponsive woman. When deputies arrived, they discovered a horrific scene: Kayla Hodgson lying dead in her own apartment, her throat slashed from ear to ear, multiple stab wounds marking her body. The brutality of the attack suggested not just murder, but fury. Not just violence, but vengeance. For weeks, Kayla's family and friends were tormented by questions. Who would do this to a young mother? Why target someone who had just begun settling into her new home? The community reeled as investigators combed through evidence, searching for answers. Then came the breakthrough that would expose a disturbing truth. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was a calculated hunt, fueled by jealousy and facilitated by modern technology. But the most shocking twist was yet to come. Weeks later, as Thompson faced the justice system for her alleged crimes, she would make an announcement in court that would leave everyone, from the judge to Kayla's grieving family, utterly stunned. The story of Kayla Hodgson's murder reveals the dangerous intersection of romantic obsession and digital surveillance, how everyday technology can become a weapon in the hands of someone consumed by jealousy. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about privacy, relationships, and the unexpected ways our digital footprints can lead to real-world danger. Have you ever worried about being tracked through your phone? About someone monitoring your movements without your knowledge? Share your thoughts in the comments below as we examine how one woman's fresh start became another woman's deadly target. Here at Crime Scene Exposed, we dive deep into the most infamous crimes, baffling disappearances, disturbing confessions, and twisted criminal minds from around the world. Kindly support this channel by subscribing and liking this video.
Murder mystery at Tamarack apartment complex turns into a crime scene after a young woman's body was found inside. Family and friends gathering throughout the day and word of her untimely passing.
Local 10's Janine Stanwood is live from the scene with what she's learned. Janine.
There are still so many questions about what happened to this young woman. Initial reports, which you're about to hear, are disturbing. And right now you can see deputies and law enforcement are still here as loved ones gather to say goodbye.
All units need to stand by where they are.
Into the night, an investigation into how a young woman died inside her apartment in Tamarack. Family tells us she is 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson, and loved ones say she hasn't been living here in the Tamarack Village apartments for very long. According to the Broward Sheriff's Office, it was around 3 p.m. when they got the call about an unresponsive woman.
The caller said that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
When deputies and fire rescue arrived, they determined she was dead. Throughout the day, distraught friends and relatives showed up on scene, many telling us they were too upset to speak on camera. Crime scene investigators taking photos of this white SUV before it was towed away. And a forensics truck has been here most of the day. The sheriff's office being tight-lipped about how this young woman died and who could be responsible.
Born in the late 1990s, Kayla Hodgson grew up surrounded by a large, loving family in South Florida. Her mother Michelle raised her with strong values of loyalty and compassion, qualities that would define Kayla throughout her too short life. She shared deep bonds with her 4 brothers, Stephen, Joshua, Nathaniel, and Eric. Family gatherings were always livelier when Kayla was present, her energy infectious, and her laughter memorable. She was an amazing daughter, a very loved and adored big sister, niece, granddaughter, and cousin, whose bond was like no other, a family member recalled after her death. This sentiment echoed across the many tributes that poured in following the tragedy, each one painting a picture of a young woman whose warmth left lasting impressions on everyone she met. By age 23, Kayla had become a mother to 4 children. Motherhood became central to her identity, shaping her decisions and driving her ambitions. Friends noted how her children were always her top priority, how she spoke of them with unmistakable pride, and how she worked tirelessly to provide them with stability and love. Professionally, Kayla had found her niche in Broward County's bustling hospitality scene. As a bartender and bottle waitress, she quickly became known for her charisma and work ethic. Colleagues described her as someone who could handle the fast-paced environment with grace while making genuine connections with patrons. Just really sweet, the life of the party, one employer remembered. In an industry where personality matters as much as skill, Kayla excelled at both. She wasn't just serving drinks, she was creating experiences, making guests feel welcome, and turning first-time visitors into regulars who asked for her by name. Those who worked alongside her noted her reliability. She was someone you could count on to show up, to help out, to lift spirits during long shifts. In the competitive South Florida nightlife world, Kayla had built a reputation that promised a bright future. Beyond her professional persona, friends knew Kayla as everybody's hype man. She had an uncanny ability to sense when someone needed encouragement and never hesitated to offer support. She always had kind words, one friend shared, recalling how Kayla would send unexpected messages of affirmation just when they were most needed. Her social media reflected a young woman embracing life, photos with friends, moments with her children, nights at work, and days at the beach. She documented her journey with authenticity, sharing both celebrations and struggles. The summer of 2022 marked what should have been an exciting new chapter. Moving into the Tamarack Village apartment complex represented independence and progress. Located near Northwest 57th Street, the apartment was in a neighborhood considered safe and family-friendly, an ideal setting for a young mother looking toward the future. Kayla had just begun settling in, meeting neighbors, arranging furniture, and transforming the space into a home. She continued working shifts at local venues, saving money and planning ahead. There was no indication that danger lurked nearby, no warning that her path had crossed with someone whose jealousy would prove fatal. As one family friend expressed after her death, her life was gone way too soon. The sentiment captures the profound sense of loss felt by all who knew Kayla Hodgson, a vibrant spirit extinguished just as a new chapter was beginning. In early 2022, Kayla Hodgson had recently begun dating someone new. This relationship brought fresh energy and happiness to her life, the kind of connection that makes everything else seem brighter. What Kayla couldn't have known was that her new boyfriend carried with him a dangerous attachment, one that would ultimately cost Kayla her life. Sakiyna Thompson, a 28-year-old Jamaican native, wasn't just any ex-girlfriend. She was a woman who fundamentally misunderstood the nature of relationships, viewing them not as partnerships but as ownership arrangements. In Thompson's world, her boyfriend wasn't someone who could choose to leave. He was property, and Kayla was trespassing. "I don't play about mine. Try to take what's mine, and you'll see these hands." Period. These weren't empty words, but a manifesto Thompson had publicly declared in social media videos before the murder. She stared into the camera with cold determination, making it clear that her possessiveness had violent potential.
You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right?
I'ma go buy me a gun, and I'ma come back here and set this motherfucker off.
The relationship dynamics were complicated. While some reports suggested the boyfriend had ended things with Thompson before dating Kayla, others indicated he might have been seeing both women simultaneously. This ambiguity only intensified Thompson's sense of betrayal and entitlement. As Kayla and her new boyfriend grew closer, Thompson's rage crystallized into purpose. She didn't see a young mother building a new life. She saw only a rival who needed to be eliminated. This wasn't a crime of spontaneous passion, but a calculated response to what Thompson perceived as theft of her property. What made this situation particularly dangerous was Thompson's willingness to employ technology in service of her obsession. While Kayla focused on creating a home for her children and building her future, Thompson was already tracking, monitoring, and planning, turning digital tools into weapons that would lead her directly to Kayla's door. Thompson's surveillance operation revealed both technical sophistication and frightening dedication. Using GPS tracking applications, she monitored her boyfriend's every movement with precision that transformed her from jealous ex to digital predator. These tracking applications, often marketed for innocent purposes like finding lost phones or keeping tabs on children, became Thompson's window into her ex's new life. His smartphone continuously broadcast his location, creating a real-time map of his movements that Thompson studied obsessively. She would sit for hours just watching the dot move on her screen, one acquaintance later revealed. She knew exactly when he arrived at that girl's apartment, how long he stayed when he left. She had it all mapped out like some kind of military operation. Thompson's tracking went beyond casual curiosity. She created detailed logs of patterns, departure times, arrival times, duration of visits. Each entry at Tamarack Village was highlighted, analyzed, and added to her growing repository of grievances. The GPS coordinates of Kayla's apartment became a fixation point, a target on a digital map that Thompson revisited constantly. This technological stalking created a dangerous paradox. Thompson never had to physically follow her ex to know his whereabouts, yet the digital trail led her precisely to Kayla's physical location when she decided to act. The technology that keeps us connected had become a weapon that eliminated the traditional barriers between stalker and victim. Thompson's social media offered disturbing glimpses into her deteriorating mental state. Beyond her threatening videos about protecting what's hers, her posts increasingly focused on themes of betrayal and retribution. Some people don't understand boundaries until they're taught a lesson, she wrote weeks before the murder. Friends noticed her growing isolation as she became consumed with monitoring her phone, analyzing location data, and nurturing her resentment. Psychologists who study pathological jealousy identify several warning signs that were evident in Thompson's behavior. Her possessiveness had crossed from normal attachment into dangerous territory, characterized by viewing relationships as ownership arrangements, dehumanizing perceived rivals, extensive monitoring and surveillance, explicit threats of violence when feeling threatened, inability to accept relationship boundaries. By July 2022, the GPS data had confirmed beyond doubt what Thompson suspected. Her boyfriend was regularly visiting Kayla. In her distorted worldview, this wasn't just a new relationship, it was a personal attack that demanded response. The final trigger remains unknown. Perhaps it was a particularly long visit to Kayla's apartment, or a special occasion she observed through social media. Whatever catalyzed her action, by July 13th, Thompson had transformed from digital stalker to physical threat. The coordinates that had been data points on her phone were about to become the scene of a brutal murder. Digital stalking is becoming increasingly common in our connected world. What security measures do you take with your devices? Do you regularly check location sharing settings or use privacy features? Let me know in the comments below. July 13th, 2022 began as an ordinary summer day in Tamarack, Florida. The temperature climbed into the high 80s as residents of Tamarack Village went about their routines, heading to work, running errands, or enjoying the community amenities. The apartment complex near Northwest 57th Street was considered a safe, family-friendly environment, with its modern units and well-maintained grounds attracting young professionals and families. For Kayla Hodgson, it was just another Wednesday. Having recently moved in, she was still in that phase of making a house into a home, arranging furniture, establishing routines, getting to know neighbors. As a mother of 4 and a hospitality worker, Kayla was accustomed to juggling responsibilities and making the most of her time. What she couldn't know was that this ordinary day would be her last. Miles away, Sakiyna Thompson was watching her phone, tracking the movements of Kayla's boyfriend through GPS technology. The digital marker showing his location had become her obsession, and she monitored it constantly, waiting for the pattern she had come to recognize: his visits to Tamarack Village. That morning, Thompson made preparations that would later reveal the premeditated nature of her actions. She dressed in nondescript clothing that wouldn't draw attention. She selected a knife with a blade sharp enough to inflict maximum damage. She mapped the route to Tamarack Village, familiarizing herself with entry points and potential escape routes. These weren't the actions of someone acting on impulse, they were the calculated steps of someone with deadly intent. By early afternoon, Thompson's tracking showed what she had been waiting for. Her target was heading toward Kayla's apartment. This was the moment she had been planning for, the confrontation she had been building toward through weeks of digital surveillance and mounting rage. Thompson arrived at Tamarack Village and made her way to Kayla's second-floor apartment. Whether she waited for the boyfriend to leave or confronted them together initially remains unclear from public records. What is certain is that at some point Thompson gained access to Kayla's apartment, either by force, deception, or by finding it unlocked. The confrontation that followed was brief, but brutally violent. According to the medical examiner's findings later referenced in court documents, Thompson attacked Kayla with extreme ferocity. The The knife slashed across Kayla's throat from ear to ear, a wound so severe it indicated not just intent to kill, but a desire to obliterate. Multiple additional stab wounds marked Kayla's body, suggesting a frenzied attack driven by uncontrolled rage. Kayla had little chance to defend herself against the sudden, vicious assault. The attack was so swift and violent that neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual. No prolonged struggle, no screams for help, just the ordinary ambient sounds of apartment living. This silence would later haunt the community. The idea that such violence could occur without anyone noticing, without anyone having the chance to intervene. By approximately 3 p.m., it was over. Thompson fled the scene, leaving behind a crime scene that would shock even veteran investigators. Kayla lay dead in her own home, surrounded by the ordinary objects of daily life, a cruel juxtaposition of domestic normalcy and extreme violence. At around 3 p.m., emergency services received a 911 call reporting an unresponsive woman in the apartment. When Broward Sheriff's Office deputies arrived, they found Kayla's body and immediately classified the death as suspicious. The severity of her injuries made it instantly clear this was a homicide, and the crime scene was secured for investigation. Detectives noted several key details that would later prove crucial to the case. Despite the violence of the attack, Kayla's personal belongings and jewelry remained untouched, immediately ruling out robbery as a motive. The nature of the wounds, particularly the throat slash, suggested personal animus rather than random violence. And the lack of forced entry indicated Kayla might have known her attacker or been caught completely by surprise. As crime scene technicians processed the apartment, collecting blood evidence, fingerprints, and other forensic materials, a white Range Rover parked nearby was also cordoned off for examination. Investigators worked methodically, knowing that the first 48 hours after a homicide are often the most critical for gathering evidence and identifying suspects. What they couldn't yet know was that the digital trail, the very GPS technology that had led Thompson to Kayla's door, would also help lead investigators to Thompson. The premeditated nature of the crime, so carefully planned through technological stalking, had created electronic evidence that would prove impossible to erase completely. As the sun set on Tamarack Village that evening, residents gathered behind police tape, shocked that such violence had invaded their community. For Kayla's family, the nightmare was just beginning. The murder of Kayla Hodgson presented investigators with a challenging case. There were no witnesses to the actual killing, no security camera footage capturing the attack, and initially, no obvious suspect. What they did have was a crime scene that suggested personal motivation, and a victim who had only recently moved to the area, narrowing the field of potential suspects with long-standing grudges. The first significant lead came from Kayla's recent relationship history. When detectives interviewed friends and family, they learned about her new boyfriend. This information alone might not have immediately pointed to Thompson, but when investigators examined the boyfriend's phone records and digital footprint, a disturbing pattern emerged. "We noticed unusual activity in his location services," one detective later explained. The boyfriend's smartphone had been consistently tracked through GPS technology, creating a digital trail that led directly to Kayla's apartment. This discovery shifted the investigation's focus. Someone had been monitoring his movements, someone who might have had motive to harm Kayla. Digital forensics specialists extracted data from multiple devices and accounts, revealing that Thompson had been using tracking applications to monitor the boyfriend's whereabouts. Her digital fingerprints were everywhere. Login records showing she had accessed tracking services multiple times daily, search history revealing inquiries about Tamarack Village, and location data placing her own phone near the crime scene on July 13th. The GPS evidence provided investigators with a crucial timeline. They could now trace Thompson's movements on the day of the murder, showing her traveling to Tamarack Village at precisely the time when the boyfriend's location showed him there. More damning still, her phone's location data placed her at Kayla's apartment building during the estimated time of death. This digital evidence was corroborated by more traditional investigative methods. Forensic analysis of the crime scene yielded DNA evidence that didn't match Kayla or known visitors. When compared against databases, this evidence pointed toward Thompson. Additionally, fingerprints recovered from Kayla's apartment door matched Thompson's prints on file from previous documentation. Surveillance footage from businesses near Tamarack Village captured images of Thompson's vehicle entering the area around the time of the murder. Though the apartment complex itself had limited security cameras, the surrounding neighborhood provided enough visual evidence to establish Thompson's presence in the vicinity. The investigation also uncovered Thompson's threatening social media posts, public declarations of her possessiveness, and willingness to use violence against perceived rivals. These posts, combined with the GPS tracking evidence, painted a clear picture of premeditation and motive. Within weeks, investigators had assembled enough evidence to secure an arrest warrant for Sakiyna Thompson on charges of first-degree murder. But by this time, Thompson had fled Florida. Using electronic surveillance techniques, investigators tracked Thompson's movements after the murder. Credit card transactions, phone pings, and transportation records created a trail leading north. Thompson had fled to New York, specifically to Springfield Gardens in Queens, likely believing distance would provide safety from prosecution. On August 3, 2022, exactly 3 weeks after Kayla's murder, law enforcement located Thompson in Queens. The arrest operation involved coordination between Florida authorities and the New York Police Department. Thompson was taken into custody without incident, appearing surprised that authorities had tracked her across state lines. The extradition process began immediately. Thompson fought extradition briefly, but the overwhelming evidence against her made these efforts futile. By mid-August, she was back in Broward County, Florida, facing first-degree murder charges. The indictment against Thompson cited premeditated design in Kayla's killing, noting that the murder demonstrated a depraved mind without regard for human life. Prosecutors highlighted the GPS tracking as clear evidence of planning and intent. This wasn't a crime of passion, but a calculated execution. For investigators, the case represented a modern evolution in homicide investigation, where digital evidence proved as crucial as physical evidence. The very technology Thompson had used to stalk her victim had created an electronic paper trail that made her impossible to hide. In trying to eliminate a perceived rival, she had instead ensured her own capture through the digital breadcrumbs she couldn't help but leave behind. By late August 2022, Sakiyna Thompson sat in a Broward County courtroom for her arraignment. The 28-year-old appeared subdued in her orange jumpsuit, a stark contrast to the woman who had brazenly threatened violence on social media months earlier. The courtroom was packed, journalists documenting every moment, curious members of the public drawn by the case's notoriety, and most importantly, Kayla Hodgson's family seeking justice for their loved one. The charges against Thompson were severe: first-degree murder with premeditation, a capital offense in Florida that carried potential penalties ranging from life imprisonment to death. The prosecution's case appeared strong, built on a foundation of digital evidence, forensic findings, and Thompson's own incriminating social media history. Judge Marcus Williams presided over the proceedings with the gravity the case demanded. The initial hearings focused on procedural matters, formal reading of charges, assignment of counsel, and discussions of bail. Given the severity of the crime and Thompson's flight to New York after the murder, prosecutors argued forcefully against any possibility of pretrial release. The defendant has already demonstrated her willingness to flee jurisdiction, the lead prosecutor stated. She presents an extreme flight risk and a danger to the community. The judge agreed, ordering Thompson held without bond pending trial. As the legal process continued through preliminary hearings, Thompson remained largely silent, speaking only briefly to answer direct questions from the judge. Her court-appointed attorney focused on procedural challenges and evidence admissibility questions, standard tactics in serious criminal cases. Then came the moment that stunned the courtroom. During a routine status hearing approximately 6 weeks after her arrest, Thompson's attorney requested to approach the bench for a private conference with the judge and prosecutors. After several minutes of hushed discussion, the judge asked Thompson to stand. "Ms. Thompson, your attorney has just informed the court that you are claiming to be pregnant. Is this correct?" Judge Williams asked. Thompson nodded before responding clearly, "Yes, Your Honor. I'm pregnant." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Kayla's family members, seated in the front row, visibly recoiled at the announcement. One of Kayla's brothers stood abruptly before being gently pulled back to his seat by other family members. Thompson's attorney immediately followed with a motion that shocked the court even further. "In light of my client's pregnancy, we are requesting modified detention conditions, including possible house arrest with monitoring to ensure proper prenatal care." The audacity of the request that a woman accused of slashing another mother's throat might be released due to her own impending motherhood created a palpable tension in the courtroom. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Thompson had allegedly robbed for children of their mother, and now was attempting to use her own pregnancy as leverage for leniency. The prosecutor rose immediately in opposition. Your Honor, the state is appalled by this transparent attempt to manipulate the court's compassion. Ms. Thompson is accused of brutally murdering a mother of 4 children. Her alleged pregnancy, which we have yet to verify, does not mitigate the extreme danger she poses to society. Judge Williams maintained his composure despite the courtroom tension. The court will require immediate medical verification of this pregnancy claim. Until such verification is provided and reviewed, the defendant's detention status remains unchanged. Kayla's mother, Michelle, who had maintained remarkable composure throughout previous hearings, finally broke down. "My daughter will never see her children grow up," she sobbed as family members consoled her. "And she wants special treatment." Outside the courtroom, Kayla's family spoke briefly to assembled media. "This is just another example of her manipulation," Kayla's brother Stephen stated. "She took our sister from us, took a mother from 4 children, and now wants sympathy because she's pregnant? The system cannot allow this kind of manipulation to work." The pregnancy claim necessitated immediate action from the court. Judge Williams ordered an official medical examination to confirm Thompson's pregnancy and determine how far along she might be. Court records were sealed regarding the conception date, but speculation immediately centered on whether the pregnancy predated the murder or occurred during Thompson's brief period of freedom before her arrest. Within days, medical verification confirmed that Thompson was indeed approximately 10 weeks pregnant. This timeline suggested conception occurred shortly before Kayla's murder, adding another disturbing layer to an already complex case. The pregnancy confirmation created unprecedented complications for prosecutors and the court. While Florida's correctional system has protocols for pregnant inmates, including specialized medical care and dietary considerations, Thompson's attorneys continued pushing for modified detention, arguing that jail conditions could endanger the unborn child. Prosecutors countered by highlighting the facilities and care available to pregnant inmates in the Broward County system. The defendant will receive all necessary prenatal care while in custody, they assured the court. Her pregnancy does not diminish the overwhelming evidence against her or the danger she poses. Judge Williams ultimately denied the motion for modified detention, ruling that Thompson would remain in custody with appropriate prenatal care provided by the correctional facility's medical staff. However, he did order additional monitoring of her condition and regular reports to the court about her prenatal care. For Kayla's family, the pregnancy revelation was a painful twist in an already agonizing process. "It feels like she's still trying to hurt us, still trying to make this about her," one family member told reporters. "But we won't let this distract from what matters, justice for Kayla." Thompson's pregnancy announcement sent shockwaves through the South Florida community and beyond. Local media outlets ran headline stories about the development, with television news leading broadcasts with the courtroom revelation. The Sun-Sentinel and Miami Herald dedicated front-page coverage to what many were calling a calculated bid for sympathy from an alleged killer. Social media exploded with reactions, the case trending across platforms as people expressed outrage at what many perceived as Thompson's manipulation of the justice system. "She took a mother from 4 children and now wants special treatment because she's pregnant," wrote one Twitter user in a post that garnered thousands of shares. Facebook groups dedicated to supporting Kayla's family saw membership surge as the public rallied against Thompson's request for modified detention. Legal commentators appearing on local news programs debated the implications. While most acknowledge that pregnant inmates deserve appropriate medical care, they emphasize that pregnancy shouldn't shield violent offenders from justice. "The system must balance the rights of the unborn child with public safety and the victim's right to justice," explained one former prosecutor on a panel discussion that drew record viewership. For Kayla's family, the pregnancy revelation compounded their trauma. "It feels like she's twisting the knife," Michelle, Kayla's mother, told reporters outside the courthouse. "Every time we come here hoping for justice, she finds a new way to make it about her." Family members described sleepless nights and renewed grief following the announcement, the legal proceedings becoming increasingly painful rather than healing. The Broward County community responded with an outpouring of support for Kayla's children. A trust fund established for their education and care saw donations spike after Thompson's pregnancy announcement, with many donors explicitly mentioning their motivation: for Kayla's kids, who deserve support while their mother's killer seeks special treatment. Local businesses organized fundraisers, and Kayla's former employers in the hospitality industry held memorial events that doubled as benefit drives for her children. Victim advocacy groups used the case to highlight the complex trauma families experience during prolonged legal proceedings. Secondary victimization occurs when families must endure these unexpected developments, explained the director of a local victim support organization. Thompson's pregnancy announcement wasn't just a legal man. Kayla Hodgson's story reveals the deadly intersection of technological surveillance, obsessive jealousy, and the devastating consequences of romantic deception in the digital age. What began as a new relationship for Kayla ended in tragedy, not just because of Thompson's actions, but because a man who apparently maintained relationships with both women simultaneously. The boyfriend at the center of this triangle bears a moral responsibility that cannot be overlooked. By dating both women, whether through deliberate deception or poor communication, he created a volatile situation that ultimately turned deadly. While his actions don't justify Thompson's violence, they highlight how relationship dishonesty can trigger dangerous consequences when combined with obsessive personalities. This case exposes multiple modern dangers: how easily technology can be weaponized, how relationship deception can spark violence, and how innocent people can be caught in the crossfire of others' dysfunction. Location services designed to help us navigate became, in Thompson's hands, tools for stalking and ultimately murder. But the technology alone wasn't the problem. It was the toxic combination of jealousy, possessiveness, and the boyfriend's apparent willingness to maintain multiple relationships without transparency. The justice system continues to adapt to these modern challenges, balancing traditional legal principles with evolving technological and social realities. Thompson's case demonstrates how digital evidence has transformed investigations, creating electronic trails that can be more revealing than physical evidence. Yet it also highlights how unexpected developments, like a pregnancy announcement, can complicate legal proceedings. For Kayla's family, justice remains the priority regardless of these complications. "We want her remembered for how she lived, not just how she died," her brother stated at a memorial event. Kayla was joy and light and love. She was a dedicated mother, a loyal friend, someone who made every room brighter. This legacy, not the sensational aspects of her death or the subsequent legal drama, is what her family fights to preserve. The community response to this tragedy demonstrates humanity's capacity for compassion amid darkness. From financial support for Kayla's children to advocacy for better safety measures, people channeled their outrage into constructive action. This collective response offers hope that even from the darkest circumstances, positive change can emerge. Kayla's story serves as a multi-layered warning about the dangers of obsession, the potential misuse of technology, and the sometimes fatal consequences of romantic deception. Her memory lives on not just in courtrooms and news headlines, but in the hearts of those who loved her and the community that refuses to forget her. This case shows the shocking depths of human behavior and the tragic consequences when jealousy, technology, and deception collide. If you found this story as disturbing as I did, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay informed about similar cases that expose the darkest sides of humanity.